Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. I've been thinking about this school violence that's been going on south of the border lately, and the old term about employees going postal. And the conclusion I've come up with is, as a society, we have never developed a successful way for people to blow off energy. Let me get into what I'm saying here. In the 1800s and 1900s, people would have a duel. I was going to bring my dueling swords out, but they're upstairs and they're put away, and I'd wake the family up. So the point of having them was just to say people used to have a mechanism. It wasn't necessarily healthy, but duels weren't designed to kill anybody. They're designed to wound, to draw blood, and that's when the duel would be called off, honor having been satisfied. Obviously, dueling is not making a comeback because we're pretty sedentary now. I'm one of the few people that actually possesses the skill to wield a foil, and there are combat arts out there. But again, our population is aging, we're getting older, we're getting fatter, and while there are people that can blow off their energy in working out, most people simply cannot. So we turn to esports, we turn to miniature tabletop games, card games, collectible card games, and that lets us get the competitive spirit out of ourselves. But it burns very little real energy. It does burn energy in the mind. It can make you mentally tired, but physically you're still jacked up. You get all the adrenaline in there. Whatever's pissed you off, yeah, that's still there. I used to have one of the wrestling games. I don't remember which one, but it offered you the opportunity to customize your characters. So I made one character look like me. I made ones that resembled my coworkers, and when somebody pissed me off, I'd come home, I'd plug the game in, and I'd work my frustrations out. Totally healthy, nobody got hurt, but still, I wasn't resolving the physical energy, but I was still getting a little bit of satisfaction because you were seeing yourself do the activity that you wanted to do. Smack them, whatever it's going to be. Because smacking somebody in real life is just not a healthy thing to be doing. We have esports. There's video games available all over the place. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you probably have one or two in your phone. But the problem with video games is mostly people play all different ones. We're blessed in having such a choice and so many options. If you like giant robots, if you like medieval themed fantasy sort of things, but not everybody picks the same thing. This is a good thing and it's a bad thing. We see esports climbing in popularity. I kind of laugh at the term esport because it is an endurance test. I grant it that. It does involve a great amount of skill, but me putting this card down doesn't really take a lot of physical energy. And it's that physical energy that we repress ourselves with constantly. That's the energy that builds up and eventually explodes. That's what we need to learn to tame. Like I said, duels would get rid of that because, a couple hours, 10, 15 minutes of fencing, and when you're in that whole armor and everything, trust me, you sweat like a pig. Pistol fencing, I know I'd be sweating, but it would be for a completely different reason. We have nothing available to us. We can get the police involved, we can sue, and we can get some sense of satisfaction out of that. But if you and your neighbor are at odds over a fence, I mean, you really don't have any way to take it out. And if you're a reasonable person, you don't want to get the police involved. And mostly the police are going to tell you it's a civilian matter. So you're going to spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in lawyers. No, we need some way as civilized human beings to resolve these problems. I'm at a loss. Like I said, the options are there. But if you play World of Warcraft and I play RuneScape, I'm going to have to, one of us is going to have to switch over to the other one's gaming system and level up to whatever, and then we're going to have it out. That's going to be long, frustrating, and maybe one of us doesn't really enjoy the other system, and it's torture for them, but they have to do it. Now, we need something. From the dot-com boom in 2000 up until even very recently, Nerf guns have become very popular. And indeed, they are mostly a pretty good way to resolve your differences. After all, it's just Nerf. But unfortunately, Nerf went out and evolved. And some of you may recall my video on this beast. And if not, let me assure you, this is not something you want to casually be shooting at somebody else in the office. It will put an eye out. As a matter of fact, I was showing this to my friend because I was demonstrating to her. She doesn't want to buy a similar model for her children. She actually said she would get it for self-defense because the noise this thing makes is enough to scare the dickens out of any kind of intruder. So Nerf is almost the solution that we need. If it wasn't for the stress and the heights involved, on American Gladiators, they used to have this event where you and the other person stood on a podium that was not entirely stable, which means it would rock back and forth very easy. You'd be wearing full armor, and you'd whack each other with cudgels, which are kind of a weighted stick. Well, in university, I actually got to try that out. It was a lot of fun. And since you're armored and plated down and stuff like that, yeah, it's a healthy thing, but once again, requires specialized equipment, requires the armor, which everybody's a different size, and it's just impractical. You could go to an MMA ring and do your best kickboxing that you can. Again, a lot of us are getting older, a lot of us are getting fatter, and I would not want to step into the ring with, say, a 70-year-old cancer survivor or something. They might be very good, they might be very strong, but at the same token, it would be a worry. So we have the toys, we have the technology, we just don't have an idea. And I bet it would solve a hell of a lot of the stupidity that's out there. I had a difficult time when I was growing up. I was picked on, I was bullied. It never occurred to me to come to school and pull out a gun. But our phys ed coach always said, hey, anytime you have a problem with somebody else, you come to me and I'll set up the wrestling ring and we will have a match. At that point, I was a skinny little nothing, and there was this, 6'3" kid at 14 years old, just a massive fella, and I wrestled him. You know what? He never pinned me. And even though he won on points, all the other people were impressed just because I was slippery enough to be able to get out of every hold that he had. Didn't get in a lot of offense, but just people were impressed I took him at a time limit. And even that gave both of us a sense of satisfaction. Back in the 80s, another era entirely. Even at a bar these days. In the 80s, you'd see fistfights break out all the time. In the 90s, that started to die down because that's when people started bringing guns. I mean, I live in a pretty peaceful city. I could go outside right now and yell at somebody and call them names. They're not going to pull a gun on me, most likely. But that's what's made it impossible to have a proper dueling structure put into place. People don't know how to gauge their own strength, and people are too willing to do the wrong things. So, this is an open call for everybody to figure out how we can do something so that we can get that physical and mental satisfaction of having a duel and walking away with your head held high. Just something to think about. We wish to thank you for joining us for this episode of the Silverlight Show. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, subscribe, buy a book, as that's what really supports our channel, and we hope you have a fantastic day.